Hey guys, welcome back. I wanted to talk for just a minute today about the way we respond to events in the world, the way we respond to devastating news, to upsetting news, and to people in the news that make us have visceral responses, that make our minds go nuts with this shouldn't be happening, and he shouldn't be like this, and she shouldn't be like this. And the way our bodies tend to go into fight or flight as we dive further and further into the news, whether it's through regular media or social media. And I think our bodies are so brilliant in the way that they let us know when we've kind of gotten caught up in our heads or when we're believing something that isn't necessarily the truth. I think we tend to feel the truth in our bodies. I think when we're in the truth, when we're not caught up in our heads, there's a feeling of all is well. There's an expansion. There's a knowing that no matter what's happening on the surface, things are okay. We're okay. So today, because I'm human and I have a perfectly healthy functioning brain that functions just like other humans, I forgot how this works, and I fell pretty hard into my head, into that tangled thinking as I was walking my dog. And luckily, somehow, by grace, the discomfort in my body, the tightness in my chest, that icky feeling that I get in my throat that lets me know I'm caught up in my head in a story, woke me up. And it helped me see just how easy it is to slip into arguing with what is. How easy it is to slip into, it shouldn't be like this. When we're reading the news, when we're around people we don't agree with, when we're reading about historical things that happen that seem horrific to us, it's very easy for us as humans to fall into this shouldn't be, or that shouldn't have been. We argue with reality. We argue with what is. And I thought it was interesting as I was walking to see that I don't think we do this with nature. I didn't. So the first thing I was looking at when I was walking my dog was the news on WRAL.com, so our local news. And the first story that came up was the horrific tornadoes and the devastation in Little Fort, Mississippi. And as I went through the pictures in the story, my heart broke. I was consumed with sadness and compassion and grief. And then I was also consumed with so much love for the stories of the people who rushed in to help, and so much love for the family members still searching for missing people and sitting in hospitals praying for loved ones who had made it but weren't out of the woods. So my body was flooded with a mix of sadness, grief, and love. But what it didn't have was the story of this shouldn't be. There was no tightness, there was no tension, there was no contraction in my body of this shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have tornadoes. Because I don't think we tend to do that with nature. We don't say there shouldn't be hurricanes, there shouldn't be tornadoes. We realize, I think, it's a waste of our resources. It's a waste of our energy and our time to argue with what simply is. There are tornadoes. There are hurricanes. There are violent volcanoes that erupt. There are earthquakes and devastating wildfires, but we don't waste our energy arguing with the fact that they simply exist. Instead, we simply show up. We show up and do what needs to be done. We help clean up. We rebuild. We create. And then we do what we can to protect ourselves from the things that we simply know are going to happen. We will continue to have tornadoes. We will continue to have volcanoes that erupt. We'll continue to have wildfires and hurricanes. And we do the same thing with other parts of nature. We do the same thing with animals. There was we had a birthday party for my daughter Taylor years and years ago. She was turning, I think, 6. And we lined all the little girls up in our kitchen, and we were going to take them out to the garage to do a piñata. Only when we opened the door to do the piñata, there was a copperhead snake coiled up underneath the piñata. But we didn't waste our time and energy saying there shouldn't be copperheads. We just did what needed to be done to keep the girls safe. And then my husband did what he needed to do to remove the copperhead from our garage. And I think as people, we don't tend to say there shouldn't be cockroaches, copperheads, rattlesnake, pit vipers, whatever animal we think of that is vile or harmful or whatever our mind wants to call them. We don't waste time fighting reality. We don't waste energy and resources saying this shouldn't be. These animals shouldn't exist. And yet we do it with people. We say certain people or certain kinds of people shouldn't exist. And I caught myself doing that today. After I was looking at CNN, going back and forth, like CNN and WRAL.com, looking at the coverage of the tornadoes, I landed on a news story about Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. And instead of responding the same way I responded to the devastation of the tornadoes, with sadness, with grief, with love and compassion for what had happened. Instead, I found my entire body contracting. I felt the tension in my chest. I felt my heart race. I felt my throat get tight. I felt a visceral, almost violent response within me of hatred. Of this shouldn't be. There shouldn't be people like him in power. And if I'm being honest, my mind went to there just shouldn't simply be people like Mark Robinson, period. And I noticed myself, I noticed my mind spinning and spinning about what shouldn't be and who shouldn't be and why he shouldn't be. And luckily, I know enough now to know when my body's trying to wake me up. You see, there's a difference between feeling sad or grief-stricken or even angry or even a feeling of, I hate this. And I'm arguing with reality. I'm saying this shouldn't be. But I did. I kept on for probably, 5 or 6 minutes of my walk. And I noticed I was just lost in hatred. I was lost in, he shouldn't be. There should be no Mark Robinsons. But I would never say that about the copperhead. I would never say that even about the devastating tornadoes. But we tend to say that about people. And for those of you who don't live in North Carolina or even the United States, I'm sure you have your equivalent. I imagine there's someone in your family, in your office at work, someone, or in the history books. I mean, we point to Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin. We point to all these people in history and say, they shouldn't have been. They shouldn't have been in power. We argue with reality instead of using our resources to show up and do what needs to be done. Luckily, my body woke me up today. And in an instant, I saw what I was doing. I was arguing with reality by saying Mark Robinson shouldn't be in power. And in fact, Mark Robinson shouldn't exist. He shouldn't even be here. And I remembered the words of the most amazing Martin Luther King Jr., Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can. And in that moment that I remember those words, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can. My body relaxed. My throat that had been so tight and constricted kind of just went. My shoulders fell away from my ears. My heart stopped racing. You see, what I remembered in that moment is that we've been conditioned, I think, to believe that what drives us to make change, what drives us to do good in the world and create and build, we've been taught to believe the impetus is hatred, anger, and a sense of this shouldn't be. But I don't think that's how it works. I think when we have people in our lives, whether it's in our family, in our government, that our mind says they shouldn't be, we're wasting resources. We're fighting with reality. So instead, we can relax into remembering hate doesn't drive out hate. And me believing that Mark Robinson shouldn't be in power as lieutenant governor and shouldn't be, period, full stop, is fighting with reality. It's wasting the resources that could go to doing what I can do, voting, showing up at a protest, a peaceful protest, writing letters, doing the things that can be done without hate, without even anger. You see, we don't have to fight reality. We don't have to say something shouldn't be or that something shouldn't have been in order to make a difference, in order to show up fully, ready to build, create, or rebuild. We don't have to have hatred. We don't even have to have anger to make sure that we show up fully ready to do what needs to be done to help put people in office that are kind, that are loving, that represent the values that we have. I know this was extra long. I didn't mean it to be this long, but it was just so profound today to remember again and again. I love the way that we can always trust our bodies. When our minds spin up and they want to tell stories and they want to hate and they want to be angry and they want to say this shouldn't be, when our minds want to fight what is, our bodies are so smart and they're so efficient at bringing us back to reality, bringing us back to truth, so that we can use the resources we need to go out and make a difference, to do what needs to be done to make change. And I hope that this even settles the tiniest little bit. And if there's someone in your life right now, in your family, in your neighborhood, in your government, that your mind hates, listen to your body. Trust it. Let it settle and operate from there. And remember, hate never drives out hate. Only love can do that. Thanks, guys.